Mount Vesuvius. In 79 AD, the residents of Pompeii and Herculaneum thought Vesuvius was just a mountain. They had no idea it was a sleeping monster until the top blew off, shooting a plume of superheated ash and pumice 20 miles into the stratosphere. For the first few hours, heavy pumice stones pelted the city, crushing roofs and trapping people inside their homes. But the real nightmare began the next morning with the pyroclastic surges. Avalanches of gas, ash, and pulverized rock rushed down the slopes at speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour, reaching temperatures over 500 degrees Celsius. Victims didn't suffocate slowly. The intense heat vaporized soft tissue, cooked brain matter, and instantly locked muscles into a cadaveric spasm before they could even scream. Entire towns were sealed under feet of volcanic ash, preserving a horrifying snapshot of instantaneous mass death. Krakatoa. In August 1883, an island volcano in Indonesia produced the loudest sound in recorded history, heard nearly 3,000 miles away. The force of Krakatoa exploding tore the island apart, collapsing its caldera beneath the ocean. If you were within 40 miles of the blast, the shockwave instantly ruptured your eardrums. But the explosion was only the beginning. The violent collapse of the island displaced billions of tons of seawater, triggering massive tsunamis over 120 feet tall. Entire coastal villages were completely wiped off the map, sweeping over 36,000 people out to sea. Ships miles offshore were lifted and hurled inland onto fields. Hot ash fell so heavily on nearby vessels that sailors were burned alive on deck. The atmosphere was pumped with so much ash that global temperatures dropped for years, turning sunsets blood red around the entire planet. Mount St. Helens. For months in 1980, the Washington state volcano bulged outward on its northern flank, filling with pressurized magma like a shaken soda bottle. On May 18th, a magnitude 5.1 earthquake triggered the largest landslide in human history, tearing off the side of the mountain. With the pressure suddenly released, the volcano didn't blow upward, it blew sideways. A supersonic lateral blast of superheated gas, rock, and ash surged across the landscape at 600 miles per hour, flattening hundreds of square miles of dense forest instantly. Loggers, campers, and scientists were vaporized or crushed by falling trees miles away. The heat was so intense it melted glacial ice, creating massive mudslides known as lahars that swept down river valleys, swallowing roads, bridges, and homes. In total, 57 people died in a matter of minutes, caught completely off guard by a sideways eruption nobody expected. Mount Pelée. In May 1902, on the Caribbean island of Martinique, the mountain began rumbling, filling the air with sulfur and driving thousands of venomous snakes and insects into the city of St. Pierre. Hundreds of people died from snake bites before the volcano even erupted. Despite the clear warning signs, local politicians refused to evacuate the population of 30,000 because of an upcoming election. That decision proved fatal. On May 8th, the side of Mount Pelée ripped open, releasing a glowing cloud of toxic gas and incandescent dust called a nuée ardente. Traveling at 100 miles per hour, the 10,000-degree flow engulfed St. Pierre in under 2 minutes. Buildings were leveled, ships in the harbor burst into flames, and virtually every resident died instantly as their lungs were burned from the inside out. Out of 30,000 citizens, only 2 people survived, one being a prisoner saved by the thick stone walls of his underground dungeon cell. Nevado del Ruiz. The 1985 disaster in Colombia wasn't caused by flying rocks or burning lava, but by water and mud. Nevado del Ruiz was capped with thick ice glaciers. When the volcano suffered a relatively small eruption, the red-hot pyroclastic flows instantly melted the glacier ice. Millions of gallons of water rushed down the mountain slopes, picking up soil, trees, and debris to form towering walls of liquid concrete called lahars. Moving at 30 miles per hour down river channels, the mudslides slammed into the town of Armero in the dead of night while residents slept. Over 23,000 people were buried alive in thick, suffocating mud. Miscommunication, ignored scientific reports, and delayed evacuation warnings turned a predictable eruption into the 4th deadliest volcanic disaster in recorded history. Lake Nyos. In 1986, a silent nightmare occurred in Cameroon that wiped out entire villages without a single drop of lava or ash. Lake Nyos sat inside a volcanic crater, trapping massive amounts of carbon dioxide dissolved in the deep water beneath intense pressure. A landslide or minor thermal shift disrupted the water layers, triggering a rare phenomenon called a limnic eruption. Over 100,000 tons of invisible carbon dioxide violently bubbled out of the lake and spilled over the rim. Because carbon dioxide is heavier than air, the silent gas cloud flowed down into the surrounding valleys, displacing oxygen completely. Villagers in their sleep fell unconscious instantly and suffocated within minutes. Over 1,700 people and 3,500 livestock died where they lay, with no physical injuries, leaving ghostly, silent villages scattered across the countryside. Mount Tambora. In April 1815, the island of Sumbawa in Indonesia suffered the most powerful volcanic eruption in recorded history. Mount Tambora blasted over 30 cubic miles of rock, ash, and pumice into the atmosphere, completely erasing its 14,000-foot peak. The immediate explosion killed 10,000 people, sweeping heavy pyroclastic flows into the ocean and generating devastating tsunamis. But the global aftermath was far worse. A massive veil of sulfur dioxide entered the stratosphere, blocking out sunlight and lowering global temperatures. The following year, 1816, became known as the year without a summer. Frost killed crops in the middle of July across North America and Europe, leading to widespread famine, disease, and social collapse that claimed over 100,000 more lives worldwide. Whakaari White Island. In December 2019, 47 tourists and guides were walking inside the active crater of New Zealand's Whakaari volcano. Without any seismic warning, superheated steam and volcanic gas trapped beneath the shallow water table violently blew through the crater floor in a phreatic eruption. A burning surge of acidic steam, toxic gas, and pulverized rock blasted across the crater floor at high speed. The visitors had nowhere to hide. The surge hurled microscopic glass shards into their lungs and scorched their skin with acidic steam, causing catastrophic internal and external burns. 22 people lost their lives, and survivors required months of intensive care and skin grafts. It stood as a tragic reminder that steam explosions can trigger in seconds with zero advance warning. Mount Ontake. In bright autumn day in September 2014, Mount Ontake in Japan was crowded with hundreds of hikers enjoying lunch near the summit. Deep underground, groundwater made contact with rising magma, instantly flashing into high-pressure steam. Without any prior magmatic earthquakes to warn authorities, the volcano erupted phreatically at peak noon. A dense cloud of superheated steam, ash, and heavy boulders erupted into the sky. Huge, jagged rocks rained down on the helpless hikers at hundreds of miles per hour, smashing through concrete shrine roofs and crushing people where they stood. 58 people died, and dozens were severely injured in Japan's deadliest volcanic event in nearly 90 years. Mount Unzen. In 1991, Mount Unzen in Japan began growing a massive, unstable lava dome at its summit. Volcanologists Maurice and Katja Kraft, along with researcher Harry Glicken, and dozens of journalists gathered on the slopes to document the dangerous pyroclastic flows. They believed they were standing in a safe zone based on previous flow paths. But on June 3rd, a massive section of the lava dome collapsed, generating a pyroclastic surge far larger than any observed before. The cloud of 1,000-degree gas and rock changed direction, sweeping down the valley at terrifying speeds and engulfing the entire observation area. 43 people, including the world-renowned scientists and journalists, were killed instantly, proving that even expert knowledge cannot always predict the erratic behavior of a collapsing dome. Mount Nyiragongo. Located in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Mount Nyiragongo holds the world's largest lava lake. Unlike typical lava, which moves at a slow crawl, Nyiragongo's lava has an unusually low silica content, making it run like liquid water. In 1977 and again in 2002, cracks opened along the volcano's flanks, draining the entire lava lake in minutes. Rivers of liquid fire shot down the slopes at speeds exceeding 40 miles per hour, swallowing entire suburban neighborhoods of the city of Goma before residents could evacuate. The lava sliced through power lines, set buildings ablaze, and poured directly into Lake Kivu. Hundreds lost their lives, caught in their cars or homes by the fastest-moving lava on the planet. Mount Pinatubo. In June 1991, Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines unleashed the second-largest volcanic eruption of the 20th century, blowing off its peak and sending an ash cloud 22 miles high. What made this disaster unique was bad timing. At the exact moment the eruption peaked, Typhoon Nyos slammed directly into the island. Torrential tropical rainfall mixed with millions of tons of heavy volcanic ash falling from the sky, creating a thick, wet sludge that coated surrounding cities. Roofs of houses, schools, and military bases collapsed under the crushing weight, killing hundreds of people who had sheltered indoors to escape the storm. Massive lahars choked riverbeds for miles, permanently displacing over 100,000 people.